this is a stage that goes down in the pit. I said, we need to play like Rocky and put you guys down in the bottom and have you come up.
Oh, I would be game for that. Your seats, we would love to get started. First, want to welcome each and every one of you for coming to our town hall this evening. It's amazing to see so many people come. We know it's a very important topic, so we want to get right to it and making sure that we hear from you. Our job here tonight is to listen, so please feel free on the microphone to share your issues, concerns, comments as well too. We first want to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and after that we will have a prayer by Commissioner Olson. I pledge allegiance
Please join me in prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before Thee at the start of this meeting, and we pray for Thy guidance. We give Thee thanks. We give Thee thanks for our wonderful free country that we have to live in. We give Thee thanks for the many abundant blessings in each of our lives. We pray for a blessing to be upon this community. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to be here in St. John's to hear from the members of this community. We pray that Thou wilt bless us during this meeting, that we might have Thy Spirit to accompany us. We pray that Thou wilt bless us with peace and comfort, and Thy Spirit to guide our actions and discussions. We pray for Thy blessings to be upon our country. We pray for the men and women in the armed services. We pray for a special blessing to be upon those in Ukraine, that they will be guided and protected. We pray for the leaders of our nation, of our state, and of our communities. We pray for these many blessings and pray for Thy Spirit to accompany us here this evening. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson, for that very lovely prayer. Just want to go through a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. So this is a public comment is being held as part of the larger fuel plant closure docket. The docket is subject to ex parte, which means we can't discuss the merits of the case outside of an open meeting. It also means that we can't give our thoughts and our perspectives on these issues tonight. We can ask you questions, but we cannot comment. Some of you might have specific questions that you need answered. We have our community services from the Arizona Corporation Commission. We have our staff that are in the back as well too. And we also have representatives from the utilities that are ready to answer your specific questions as well too. You could also approach me or any of my staff after the meeting as well too, and we can direct you to the right person to get you your answer. So now that that's out of the way, our housekeeping order, we're going to get right to a little bit in regards to what our docket is doing right now. So the commission is investigating how the commission and other entities can assist impacted communities from their transition following the planned plant closures. The commission is particularly interested in transitional funding, repurposing of plants and facilities, and the benefits and impacts to ratepayers. Tonight, again, we want to hear from you. The community, we want to listen to what the closure means to you, your families, your neighbors, the small businesses. We want to hear your ideas, your concerns, so that we can use those during our deliberation. The agenda tonight will allow for Commissioner O'Connor and Commissioner Olson a chance to make opening remarks, and then we'll hear from some community leaders, and then we're going to hear from anyone else who wants to speak. If you haven't had a chance and you would like to speak, there are these white forms as you entered, and if you have a moment, would like to fill one of those out, they'll bring them up to me as well too, Also, at the end, when we're done with all the white sign-in sheets, I will have an open mic at that point, and if you just would love the opportunity to come and say a few words, we are open to that as well. Again, our focus here is to listen and making sure that we give you ample opportunity to be able to make comment as well. I'll move now to our opening remarks. I will start with Commissioner O'Connor, and then I'll go with Commissioner Olson.
Good evening, fellow Arizonans and residents of St. John's. It's my pleasure to have been up here again today for a visit. I had the privilege of getting to spend about the last 3.5 to 4 hours scaling the heights of your local power plant. And much to my chagrin, I took the elevator down rather than the other brave souls with me from the commission who jumped over the side of and just roped themselves down. It was an amazing thing to see. Anyway, you've got a great group of very professional folks that know their territory and are very, very dedicated. I was incredibly impressed with the plant itself, the cleanliness of the plant, particularly given its age, and really enjoyed the day. I look forward to receiving all of your comments tonight and would encourage everybody, whether you filled out a card or not, and I see that quite a few of you have, please don't be shy about coming up to talk to us. We are here to listen. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of you for coming out this evening. It's such a pleasure to be able to be here together with each of you, and I'm so glad that you've taken time out of your evening to come and share your thoughts and your feelings about this important topic so that we can hear from you as we deliberate this important docket at the Corporation Commission. It was such an honor to be able to come back up to St. John's. I used to come out here every year for a family reunion. My first ancestor to come to Arizona actually settled here in St. John's. My third great-grandfather and my great-grandfather homesteaded a property out here, and it was a special treat to be able to visit the cemetery and to see the graves of both of my ancestors and each of their wives as well. So it's just an honor to be able to be here with you and to be able to hear from you this evening. We look forward to your comments, look forward to a very productive evening while we get input from you, and so that we can take that into consideration as we debate and deliberate this issue at the Corporation Commission. Thank you so much.
Commissioners, we'll start off with Mayor Spence Udall.
Members of the commission, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you. If you'll indulge me, I don't know if this is the kosher thing to do, but if you'll indulge me just a minute, I want to talk to these guys just for a second. It's not very often that we have a chance to speak to this many people in our community. There's just a couple things that I want to tell you guys. I know that the prospect of these power plants closing down is a scary thing. I mean, truthfully, it's terrifying to me. Of the things that keep me up at night, and truly do, this is it. But in this time, I can honestly say that we have many reasons to not only be thankful, to be grateful, and I would even say that we have reason to be hopeful right now. Many of you probably don't really understand why the Arizona Corporation Commission is up here, and I hate to admit ignorance. It wasn't, but I don't know. I told Commissioner Kennedy 2 weeks ago that I admitted to her that I really had no clue what the Arizona Corporation Commission did until I had to know what they did. And so I'm learning about it now. And in a nutshell, if you don't know what they do, I'm going to give you a 2-second brief of what they do. And that is that they are the most powerful government entity in the state of Arizona that you maybe never heard of. And for them to come up here and listen to us and what we have to say, I am grateful for that. Because that's a big deal. That's a big deal that we can get them to come up here and listen to us and listen to our stories and to listen to the things that are important to us. And now that I've told you a little bit about what they are, what they do, I just want to relay a quick story about maybe who they are. So last night I was lucky enough I went over to Joe City. I sped over there and got a ticket for going 93 miles an hour coming home. But that's just the side note to the story. But Commissioner Tovar started the meeting, and it was a good meeting. It was actually a great meeting. But about a half hour into that meeting, she stopped it, and she said, "Hold on, made a little bit of a mistake." And she said, "If you guys are all right with it, I'd like to say a pledge, and I'd like to say a prayer." And so we went and found a flag, and a guy volunteered, and we did it. That's who they are. So we're lucky. We're lucky to not only have powerful people here, we're lucky to have good people here. And so tonight we have the opportunity to show them the kind of people that we are. And I'm grateful for that. So if you feel like talking, I'd encourage you to do so, because now's a great time to do it. So. All right, I'll try not to get all sappy anymore. Anyway, like I said, Commissioners, I am so grateful for you guys to come here. You know, as you probably know, St. John's isn't a big town. Town of 3,500 people. But what we lack in size, what we lack in people, has never stopped us from putting some of the greatest people out onto the market that even arguably the United States has ever seen. We have put out, from this little town, Arizona state legislators, Arizona state congressmen. We have put out university presidents, university vice presidents, multiple professors at universities. We have put out United States senators, United States congressmen. We have put out a United States Solicitor General. We have put out a United States Secretary of the Interior. And we have also had a presidential candidate. And through that time, when right now it's pretty cool to be environmentally conscious, at that time when it wasn't so cool, under the leadership of people like that, here are some of the things that they did for the United States of America. They added 4 national parks, 6 national monuments, 8 national seashores and lake shores, 9 national recreation areas, 20 national historic sites, and 56 national wildlife refuges. That's what came out of this town. And while what they did is noteworthy, they probably are the least of which that should receive the recognition right now. Because the truth is, of those men and women that are able to leave St. John's and go and spread their wings and become popular and do great things, the unsung heroes are the people that raised them here in this town. The ones that don't get recognized. The ones that, you know, the dirt of this town has raised more good people than we would ever be able to mention. But that doesn't mean that we haven't had challenges, because we have. And lucky for us, 40 years ago, 2 of the finest power companies moved into our area. And let me tell you, it was a much needed lifeline that they came into our area. And when they did, they invested in us. And maybe one of the greatest investments is where you're sitting right now in this high school. And this is a great example. If you could think forward, because we have the luxury of thinking backward right now, because of an investment in this school, the St. John's school system is truly the gem of our town. And we have always been able to go far and beyond what this little school has done. Academically, we're second to nobody. Athletically, we're always in the fight. And whether it is building solar race cars or solar boats or anything, we are always at the top of the class. And that a lot has to do with a good investment in the right place. And as we move forward, that's something that I kind of want to look at. And also, when they came in, they put in one of the best parks that we could ever ask for. So we are blessed very blessed that we have them in us. I'm lucky. I'm one of the ones that gets to work at SRP. I'm one of the ones that gets to have one of those high-paying jobs. But not everybody in this auditorium has had that luck. We've always taken a little pride that we have helped build the 5th largest city in the United States of America. And even though everybody in this auditorium maybe hasn't received a benefit from working at the power plant, arguably every person down in the valley has received a benefit from the labor and the work that we do right here. And we've been proud of that. When you look at it, it may not seem that bleak because SRP, we employ about 100 jobs in our community. TEP is about 150. And then contractors, maybe another 100. So you're at 350 people right there. That doesn't seem that bad in a town of 3,500 until you look at it and say, well, probably every one of those 350 has a spouse. We're at 700 right there. And then probably those have at least 3 kids. And let's be honest, there's a lot of Mormons. Maybe it's more like a dozen kids. But if you just be conservative and say 3, pretty soon that 700 becomes 2,100. And the question I would ask you, how does a town ever survive if in the span of 10 years they lose over half of their population from a decision that we never got to even sit and talk about until now? And that's what's so important about this meeting tonight. Many of the things that you take for granted in the valley in terms of critical infrastructure are things that we don't even have yet. St. John's is considered a food desert. We do have a grocery store, thank goodness, but they're struggling immensely, and it's something that we've been working on. This commission knows very well our struggles with broadband, thanks to Chief Spivey. You've been in on those. For over 3 years, we have worked very hard to try to get broadband into this area. Our housing, while it's been in crisis in the valley for a year and a half, 2 years, we've been in a crisis for a decade. You know, so the things that you have moved far beyond are the things that we deal with on a daily basis. And then to add this on top of it almost seems insurmountable on how we can even address it. But I am hopeful. I really am. I'm grateful. There are a lot of things that work in our benefit right now. Arizona's growing. They need power. We as city leaders, we look forward to working with both TEP and SRP in any way they'll have us to try and reach some type of a decision that is beneficial for everybody. We intend and hope that we can save as many jobs as we can. This town has got more grit, more courage than most little towns. We're not afraid to work. We just want that opportunity to work. I'm also hopeful because I feel like I work with some of the best people on the planet at our power plant. Now, I can't believe that we have the market cornered in SRP and good people. And just today, I've had the opportunity to meet some of the people that are going to be heading up the transition, the repurposing, and I believe they're good people. And I believe they want to do what's right. And so I'm very hopeful for the future. I'm not unrealistic. I understand that there's a business that needs to be taken care of, but I'm hopeful for what they do, and we look forward to working with them. And while your line site committee probably struggles to find communities to put a powerhouse in, and they say, you know, not in my backyard, we'd like to say, welcome to our backyard. Grab a chair and stay a while. We're grateful that they've been here for 40 years. And if they'd like to stay, we'd like them to stay another 40. And again, I thank you guys for your time. I thank you that you've taken time out of your schedule to come up here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Udall. And I also just want to thank you, Mayor Udall, for helping organizing this event and this amazing venue as well, too. We had people on your team, your city manager, Paul Ramsey, help out as well, too. Community Development and Planning Director, Christine Chisel, and Venue Coordinator, Joelle Hauser. They were instrumental in helping my team in making sure that we organized and had this event and venue available to everyone. So thank you again, Mayor Udall, to your team as well, too. Also want to thank Chris Mays. She's a former Arizona Corporation Commissioner. She helped out as well, too, and Amanda Orman. So let's give those people a round of applause. I want to move next to, we have Commissioner Kennedy's Policy Advisor, Will Green, that would like to make a statement on her behalf.
Thank you, Commissioner Tovar. My name is Will Green. I'm Commissioner Sandra Kennedy's Policy Advisor, sitting down here, happy to connect with anyone who wants to connect with Commissioner Kennedy in her office. She sends her regrets for not being able to be here today due to a family emergency. She asked me to share these brief remarks. Thank you all for attending this town hall. This meeting will help the commissioners, the commission and commissioners learn firsthand the experiences and hardships of communities facing coal plant closures. Replacing or mitigating the economic impact of these closures is a monumental task. But I am hopeful that throughout the course of the multiple town halls planned around the state, we will gain a better understanding of the ways the Commission can help impacted communities, and will also see the consequences of inaction. I believe the Corporation Commission, as the primary decision-making body regarding energy resource mix in the state, should also have a role as it relates to the human impact of its decisions. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Will. Also, just want to mention we did get the capacity to do live streaming, so that is going on right now through YouTube, and then also being recorded. We'll have it up within the ACC website within 24 to 48 hours, so which is great as well too. I'll move to our next community leader to speak is Nelson Davis, Apache County Superintendent, District 1.
Thank you. My name is Nelson Davis. I'm currently the chairman of the board of the Apache County Board of Supervisors for Apache County. I just want to say that I also was at the meeting in Joe City yesterday. And one of the big takeaway, and I'm going to kind of pick up where our mayor left off, since he was talking about you guys, I'm going to continue with it. But the compassion and the hearing and the ear that you lent those people over there was astonishing. Like Spence, I'm like, who is the Corporation Commission? Are they all stuffed shirts that come up here? No, they're real people, and you showed that last night. And I just want to say thank you, and thank you guys for being up here. And also to our community, thank all you people for showing up. A few statistics on our county. Our county takes up 11,000 square miles. We are the 6th largest county in the nation. From tip of Utah to the south of Alpine, our county is 210 miles long, which makes us the longest county in the United States. Our population is 65,000 people. 63% of the land in Apache County is on the reservation. 66% of the people that live in our county live on the Navajo Nation, and a small part on the Apache reservation. One statistic that will really stand out, and it's not a typo, of the appraised land tax value in Apache County. Salt River Project and TEP account for 70% of our tax base. 13% of Apache County is deeded property. I found those statistics pretty interesting. As we all know, the closure of Salt River and TP will have a dramatic effect on our communities. They contribute millions to our tax revenue. And as a community, we hear, well, they have millions in tax revenue and that might get cut, but we don't know what that means. So breaking down that dollar of tax money, the county receives between 6 and 8% of that to run Apache County. The rest of the revenue that you pay in your property taxes is broken down to special districts. The school being the largest at about 50% of that. And then it gets broke down to fire departments, libraries, health, jail districts. It goes on and on, but just a little on where the money actually goes, because most of the services that will be impacted by the loss of revenue are services that are dependent on by our community. The tax loss is a big issue, but it kind of goes farther than that. When you look at TEP and Salt River, the donations they make to our community, whether it's for parades, a skate park, putting in a water system at the school, just about, senior citizens, veterans, they donate to every civic organization we have. And if you've ever been on the fundraising end of anything, and you look through that pile of checks for the funding, you're going to find a check in there from one of these companies. So it goes way beyond just the tax base. They are good neighbors to us. Job losses, we all think of jobs as probably the number one loss, but like Spence says, everybody that leaves or is not employed is a family member, has a family. And those people that belong to that family sit on school boards, they teach your kids, they coach your kids, they haul your kids to games. There's no end. They sit on economic development boards, city councils, they're clergymen in our churches. So the loss of an employee is a huge loss. The job in itself is big, but the ripple effect is just as large. Recently I've been involved with a group that was organized to work on a transition from coal power. The people that are in that group is probably the finest group of people I've worked with. We've got people from city councils, county, state, Salt River and TB, both belong to that. We have identified as a group the number one need in Apache County is probably high-speed internet. I listen to other areas talk about, well, if our high-speed fails, we don't have a backup. Well, good for you, but we're still looking for the first one. And so that has been our goal, and I would ask you guys if you have any connections that can help us land one of these grants to help us move forward with that our community would be extremely grateful. The numbers of our county showing the size of our county, our tax base, and the effect the closure of these plants will have to our community compared to, let's say, a business that size in Maricopa County. They can weather that storm. When we lose two businesses this size in this county at the same time, it's an uphill battle all the way. So whatever you guys can do to help us, I would appreciate that. In closing, although repurposing the plant is one thing that's being talked about. I just want you to know that the county is looking at a broader range of economic development efforts to bring in additional industry and diversify our economy. We are working along with everybody else for the best outcome we can in this situation, and I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Next, we'll go with Paul Ramsey, City Manager of St. John's. Oh, Vice Mayor, come on up, please.
I apologize, I need to get back to work, but commissioners and also the SRP Transition Committee, these remarks go to you. First of all, I, like Spence, I work at Salt River, and these comments have nothing to do with Salt River, but they have everything to do with the people you sitting out here, or you see sitting out here. And Commissioner Olson, you kind of played into my remarks. The way of life that we're fighting as a council and as city officials and county officials is the fact that we've gone to the National Scout Jamboree with their kids. We've coached their kids. I know how many kids Spence has. These two gentlemen sitting over here, I've coached. I've gone to the Scout Jamboree with those kids. And my story's not unique. Everyone out there has that same story. We know who our neighbors are. We know how many kids they have. We know who their parents are. We know who their grandparents are. We know who their kids are. We know what coaches, or what they coach. We know who their kids have gone to prom with. That's the way of life that we're fighting to keep. And so as you guys go back, or we call you for help, or the SRP Transition Committee, that's what we're fighting for. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Paul Ramsey, City Manager, St. John's.
Members of the Commission, welcome to St. John's. We're truly grateful to have you here tonight, to meet the folks that make this place a great place to live. It's hard. I came from a rival high school growing up, so I've eaten a lot of crow since I've been here, and not all of it's delicious. But one thing I do want to say is if the mayor was only doing 93, he had to have some indication that there was law up ahead and he'd slowed down some. We appreciate you being here. Let me tell you just a little more about some of these people. We talked about those who came and did great things, but I'd like to talk about some of those that started here. When they got here, there was very little. All that was here really was a crossing on the little Colorado River that had enough rock under it that they could use it for a transport line to bring goods from New Mexico into the Fort Apache area down below, and the bar started that. And it evolved from there, and then there was assignments for pioneers to come down here and develop later. The Hispanic community was established here, but it was a meager living. And it was a meager living when they got here. They were digging out caves and hovels to live in, to survive the elements until they could build something. And if you look around, the trees that you see were brought and planted. There was very little here. Now, I know we get cussed out because many of those seeds are Chinese owned. And they're very relentless. Much like the pioneers that came, that even though it was conditions where it was a difficult living and hard, they built numerous irrigation systems in the area. And in one single event, summer event, 13 irrigation dams were washed out. And everything had to start again in these surrounding communities, not just here. But those are the types of people who are industrious and looked ahead, knowing that they could make this a better place. And that's the type of people that you see behind us. In the middle of the last century, it was said there were more millionaires per capita in this area than in anywhere else in the state of Arizona. But it was that industry of great families that determined to make something in timber, in cattle, in land acquisition, in government, in education, and those are the people that make this community. So we have a lot at stake. The only reason I make that point is that that's the type of people who want to move forward in the next century and develop assets that currently exist here. We have solar, or we have sun, we have water, we have land, we have transmission from our area. No matter what it takes to develop the energy to put on that, we sit for the first time ever near a freeway, but it's a transmission freeway, not I-40 or I-10 or 17. It's the one that's going to take some energy and send it to where it can generate revenue and resource. All we're asking as this community is we exhaust every effort to utilize the assets that exist. One more component I forgot to talk about is wind. Doesn't blow around here, except on all days except Sunday and an occasional Sunday. It was said that the pioneers came and stopped here till the wind kept blowing, or till the wind quit blowing, and so we've been here for over 100 years. But all of those assets are here in this area. So there are renewable assets at our hand. The other thing I want to reiterate is we need to ensure that we don't make knee-jerk decisions with political emotion, that we look for consistency and the ability to buy that time necessary to answer all of the questions of those voids that are missing, or the things that are missing, the components missing in the Clean Energy Act. There's a lot. We need to make responsible decisions and ensure that we have a future. And this is the place where we believe in our future and that we can continue to develop those assets to move forward. These power plants have been good neighbors. We'd like to see them stay. We'd like to see them redevelop and become something that definitely has a future. We want to look at every opportunity to ensure that that happens, and we appreciate your assistance, and I believe with a collaborative effort, these things can come to pass. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Paul. Next, we'll move to Kyle Patterson, St. John's School Superintendent.
Commission, thanks. Thank you for letting me just spend a few minutes here. It's really great, and really appreciative of your willingness to come here. Obviously, I'm speaking on behalf of our school district. The school district's relationship with the power plants has been a great relationship through the years. So you look around at this auditorium. Not many small schools have an auditorium that looks like this. If we had time, we could take you around our different campuses, and you would realize why, as the mayor spoke to, the school system really is a crowning jewel of our community. It's hard to disconnect St. John's from the school system. When people talk about, hey, so what do you do in a small town? It depends on what's going on at the school. In the fall, I go to football games, soccer and volleyball. In the spring, I go to Mr. St. John's pageants. And I enjoy windy track meets. That's what we do. And it's the reason why people are proud to call St. John's home. When we have graduates who leave, we have people who want to come back, because they recognize that while it's not always the most beautiful place on earth, you're able to grow men and women here. And our schools have been integral parts of that. And for that reason, we've been very, very grateful for the help of the power plants. I know that as we've talked about transition in many meetings that I've been in, individuals are aware, people that are here today are aware of the impact that the power plants leaving might have on different industries. I don't know that people fully recognize just how huge of an impact it will have on our school district. So I just wanted to spend just a couple minutes to go over a few numbers. Last year, our budget was takes us about $14 million to run a school district. 2.8 million of that comes from SRP. So that's 23% of our budget, most of that going towards salaries, comes from SRP. I want to put that in context. Anybody that followed the state legislature the last few months, one of the big things, the major elephant in the room was the aggregate expenditure limit and whether or not the state legislature would override that. So between January and March, I attended, I can't tell you how many Zoom meetings with superintendents around the state, stressing over what would have been a 16% cut in our pay, in our budget. And superintendents were scrambling, saying, we'd have to lay off this many people and do this and that, and some were saying, we'll just shut down school, and it was panic. Well, that was 16% of their budget. We're talking about 23% just from SRP. SRP's primary assessed valuation, in which we determine when we go to a capital override, for example, we've been very grateful. We've been very fortunate because of the pride that members of our community feel in the school system. We've been very fortunate that when we go to the ballot and we ask, hey, will you pass an override? We've been very fortunate and very blessed that community members have backed that. Well, that's based off of assessed valuations. The entire district, the valuation of all the properties in the district accounts for about $29 million. SRP alone is $121 million. So what that would mean is that if we went to renew a capital override, instead of that being what it is now, 33 cents to the $100, you're asking citizens now it's $1.50 for the same price. And so as we look around our schools, we recognize that these were built and funded and helped by the plants. Most of our properties are over 40 years old. So you start looking around and you start seeing there's still things that need to be updated, things that are going to need to be updated. And we recognize that without SRP there, and the power plants and TEP, that's not going to be able to happen as it would before if something doesn't change. And so a lot of people have, as we've gone to these meetings, have said, so what is the school asking for? What's the big ask? And the big ask in most general terms is, whether to the commission, to the power plants, to any stakeholders, is to please not forget our schools. For years, our students have graduated and gone and worked at these power plants. And I hope this doesn't come off as a feeling of entitlement, but one of the jewels of our school district in the past has been the NAVIT programs and the CTE programs. I've graduated a lot of welders and a lot of people with skills that have gone out. And in some part, we feel like on the backs of our students, SRP and TEP have made a lot of money building wealth in Maricopa County and elsewhere in the Southwest. And we would love for any stakeholder that has power that can help us to not forget us and not forget the effort made by so many of our students through the years, and help us to continue to be a place and a refuge in education that builds some of the finest men and women you're going to find anywhere. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next, I'm going to ask to see if Police Chief Lance Spivey is here. I was told he might be here. Okay, when he comes in, we'll come back to him as well. Next, we'll move to Amy Brown, Business Voice.
We come as a package deal. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for being here and listening to our concerns. My name is Amy Brown. I'm an attorney at Brown & Brown Law Offices here in St. John's, and we specialize in water rights and water litigation. My father-in-law, David Brown, is the founding partner of the law firm, and he's currently out of the country. Otherwise, he would have loved to have been here to speak with you and tell lots of stories. But fortunately for you, my remarks will be much more brief than his would be, and fortunately for all of you too. SRP and TEP have been an integral part of our community for decades. As a member of the Arizona Power Plant and Transmission Line Siting Committee, Senator Jack A. Brown was instrumental in bringing both power plants to Apache County in the 1970s. St. John's will face a lot of challenges if both of these plants close down, as we have heard and as you will hear more of. But what I want to focus on tonight is the effect that the plants have had on water. Over the past 35 plus years of operations, the two plants combined have withdrawn nearly 1 million acre-feet of water from our local aquifers to generate power to send down to the valley and to Tucson. To try to put this into perspective, with 1 million acre-feet of water, we could drain and refill our 10,000-gallon community swimming pool every day for approximately 89,000 years. That's a lot of water. Not only has withdrawing this vast amount of water in a relatively short amount of time had a lasting impact on the environment, it has also impaired our community's access to this water for ranching or farming and other industries. And this limitation on the water access has effectively stunted the growth of St. John's. The plant's impact on the local aquifers has always been considered a trade-off for the jobs that the plants have provided for families here in town. And our community's first desire would be for both of the plants to remain in operation for as long as possible. If the plants are unable to maintain the status quo, we would hope that the plants can be repurposed to maintain job retention in southern Apache County. In the event that the plants must close and cannot be repurposed, we would ask that the ACC use its considerable array of tools and influence to ensure that St. John's is recompensed for the enduring effects that the plant's years of operations will continue to have on our local water supply for many years to come. Since SRP and TEP cannot simply replace the water that they have withdrawn and used, we would ask that at a minimum, all of the plant infrastructure, which would include the wells, power lines, or wells, pipelines, transmission lines, and railroads, that all of that be left in good condition, good operable condition, for use by local entities for the benefit of our community. Additional funding should also be considered to upgrade the city's infrastructure, particularly our roads that have been worn down from nearly 40 years of heavy use. Ensuring that St. John's receives the resources necessary to maintain the city's infrastructures and amenities would go a long way to ease the pain caused by the plant's closures. We understand that this meeting is just the beginning of the process, and we are very grateful that you're here to listen to our concerns, and we hope that we may be of assistance. Thank you.
Commissioners, I married way up. I'm Ben Brown, and I wanted to give a little bit of insight on the housing situation we have here in town. I'm a real estate broker, and I own a local brokerage here in town. I don't know if any of you have spent very much time in a single wide manufactured home built prior to 1978. There's a lot of them here in our town. And our town went through something similar to a growth spurt, a huge growth spurt. Prior to the construction of the plants, we were averaging about 2,200, residents, and we spiked during construction up about over 6,000. And they decided to go with our community. We have some responsibility in that, gladly welcoming the growth. They were brought in lots and lots of these early manufactured homes, many of which are still lived in today. There are a handful that are vacant, and the city, the owners would love to remediate and clean them up, but there's no funds. The city can't afford to remediate pre-1978 homes, and neither can the owners. And just like the Valley is experiencing an incredible housing crunch and lack of affordable homes, we have that probably tenfold, because our homes that are being occupied, many of them are substandard, deteriorating, and even dangerous with the pre-1978 problems that exist. And so we really don't want to be left with a bit of a mess that was brought in a rush, in haste, and we need help with affordable housing so that we can help people move out of these older homes into site-built homes or housing, and help clean up those that are existing and deteriorating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben and Amy. So I share a really quick story with you. So I had the honor to serve with your grandfather, Jack Brown, at the state legislature, and I was appointed, and I came in about 6 weeks late, and he was the first one to greet me and take me under his wing and say, you know, I'm going to teach you the ropes here because they're pretty difficult, but don't worry, you'll get the hang of it. And I said, okay, well, what is the best advice that you can give me? And he goes, sweetie, make sure you do a lot more listening than you do talking. So again, he was just a treasure to work with, and an honor, and just the most passionate servant leader that I've met yet to date. So thank you. We're going to go on to our white sheets as well too. We have Mike Green that is up next, and Wesley Barber's on deck.
Councilors, thank you for coming to St. John's, Arizona. You surprised me. I was at the top of the list. Anyway, my name is Mike Green. I have lived in St. John since 1983. I worked at Springerville Generating Station for 33 years. I'm now retired. I am the senior pastor and CEO of New Covenant Church, also the CEO of NCC Community Food Bank in this town. Statistics that were posted and put out by the Arizona Republic stated the fact that Apache County is the most, sorry, I'm kind of hoarse today, is the most food insecure county in our country. And all I want to say is that you can't really stop a company from realizing that their plant can't be profitable anymore. But what you can say is that if you give a man a fish today, he eats today. Teach him to fish. And so maybe with education, maybe with other opportunities moving in, we can help some of these people. Ben brought up a really good point, and that good point is affordable housing. We're really hurting in this town right now. I've got people moving into my church who live in Dripping Springs, Arizona, and that's on the other side of the state, Dolan Springs. I'm sorry. I have another family living in Texas and has a ranch up here, and they come back and forth. But the reason they have to do that is because they can't find housing in town here. And I have a lot of people that are looking. I have about 5 families that work at power plants in our church. And that's 5 families with fairly sizable family units, you know. And so this is going to have a big impact on our community. It really will. And I realize we're talking 2032 and beyond. And yet at the same time, coal's been vilified. And it's been vilified really badly. It is our largest, #1 natural resource that we can use. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with me, that's okay. But coal is our #1 natural resource that can generate wealth, not exchange wealth, but create wealth. And so I want to just share one little thing that happened. In 2009, I was starting up Springerville Unit 4. My guy out in the coal yard called me up, says, we're running out of coal. And I've got about 1/3 of my silos, and at that time I was doing performance testing for you guys. And I was about 3 weeks into a 4-week performance test. Didn't want to stop the performance test and start over. So I did what had to happen, and Unit 3 went missing some coal. Anyway, long story short, I called my son who works for Burlington Northern Santa Fe. I said, Nate, what's going on here? How come I'm out of coal? He says, I don't know, Dad, I'll look into it. And he looked into it, and he called me back a few days later. He said all the power was connected to rail cars going to the West Coast to ship our natural resources to the West Coast, to ship to China, to be burned unregulated, to be burned unscrubbed. You know what? Why don't we use our own natural resources to create the thing that we are so dependent on? And if we do that, prices can stay down. You guys bought fuel coming up here, and that didn't have to be that way. And so I want to say that when we pay our electric bills in this town, it doesn't have to be that way. Thank you for hearing me.
My name is Wes Babers. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at White Mountain Regional Medical Center. And as the second to third largest employer in our area, I'm here to represent my facility, my employees, and the patients we serve. We just battled COVID-19 for over 2 years, and it was hard. It still is. We saw the worst and the best in healthcare. The healthcare workers of this community and the community members we serve deserve someone to fight for them, their homes, and their family members' jobs. The generating stations at risk for closure have donated thousands to our facility to allow us to get new equipment and better serve our patients. Just recently, we received $25,000 to get a new CT machine for our patients. Ours was dying as we speak. It was down every other week. Half of these people probably know we were down. Closures of the 2 generating stations would have an overall detrimental impact on our facility. Not only has the talk of closures throughout the years created fear of growth for our facility, but has also led to providers leaving our area and community. Our facility is prepared and desperately needs to grow and expand to meet the needs of our currently growing communities. However, a closure of the generating stations would make it extremely difficult for us to generate enough revenue to keep going. I want to make it clear that the closure of the 2 generating stations will eliminate quality physicians, nurses, and many other vital employees that provide high-quality care to our communities. It is the mission of White Mountain Regional Medical Center to empower a healthier community. And to do so, we need our patients, our employees, and our providers. In more ways than one, the closure of the 2 stations would have a detrimental impact on White Mountain Regional Medical Center and the care we are able to provide. In closing, I hope you will reconsider your decision to close the 2 stations for the sake of my family, my facility, and the communities we serve.
Thank you. Next, we have Richard Lerma, and on deck, Farmer.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm going to read off this today. I'm going to be a little bit more prepared. Hello, my name is Richard Lerma. I'm the business agent for the Boilermakers, Local 627. I represent over 400 Boilermakers, from journeyman welders, riggers, mechanics, apprentices, and helpers in the state of Arizona and New Mexico. We build and maintain coal-fired and gas-fired power plants, refineries, copper smelters, chemical plants, and many other big industrial type of plants. Our bread and butter is primarily coal-fired and gas-fired power plants. We are a coal-impacted workforce, and my members do live in the surrounding communities that will be impacted from plant closures. In the transition to clean energy, our unique strengths are we are a skilled and trained workforce in the welding and rigging and mechanical work for conversion of coal-fired power plants. Our suggested conversion would be from coal-fired power plants to biomass power plants, or pump hydro storage, and even hydrogen production and storage. These utilities could keep the plants coal-fired, but install environmental controls like carbon capture, storage, and sequestration. Clean energy projects provide less jobs because there is less everyday maintenance on these clean energy facilities. Page, Arizona is proof of a community that will be economically impacted by the Navajo Generating Station closure. Page will not recover from those middle-class jobs that the power plant provided. Coal-fired power plants have hundreds of internal employees, but also have hundreds of contracted employees that fluctuate when there are scheduled outages. These major scheduled outages could bring up to 400 to 500 crafts. This does not include the other craft trades like iron workers, pipe fitters, electricians, carpenters, electricians, etc. We have no work in wind and solar. To me, those jobs are job killers, only run some of the time. They are limited energy. From a Boilermaker's perspective, coal-fired plants have more maintenance than solar and wind energy. Repurposing coal and natural gas plants with the hydrogen or biomass would be a better option for us because maintenance and conversion of these plants fall into our line of work. Solar and wind are a one-time build with minimal maintenance jobs. We doubt once enough solar and wind is built, the electrical bills will come down. Coal-fired plants to biomass plants would clean up the Arizona forest and could help to thin the forest and keep big fires at bay. The U.S. Forest Service has granted funds from the federal infrastructure bill to clean up these areas in Arizona that previously have been burned. From coal-fired to biomass conversion would assist in these efforts. In the case of Boilermakers and our concern, it is important to replace the good-paying jobs that will be lost from the closures of coal plants. Most of our Boilermakers have long-term investments in their careers at Boilermakers. They first attended and paid for trade schools to develop skills to work for these utilities. They joined apprenticeship programs to further their on-the-job training. They have invested in their pensions, annuities, and health care throughout their careers. We do not see this as big business taking advantage of disadvantaged communities. We see it as the rural communities are developing because of utilities infrastructure in these areas. I would like to close by thanking you guys for giving us the time, and then I would like to thank the community for welcoming us. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
How you doing? I'm a farmer. I'm not good at public speaking, so I got this here. Natural gas prices in Europe are going up, and due to their desire to move away from Russian natural gas and oils, we are being affected by the highest natural gas prices since 2008. The United States natural gas has entered global national gas supply, and more than ever before, natural gas in Europe is around $30 a million BTU, and our prices will continue to be under pressure as Europe looks for new suppliers of natural gas. The Glen Canyon Dam runs 1,320 megawatts and has the potential to shut down due to dead pooling. If Lake Mead dead pools, then we lose 2,080 megawatts. The Navajo Generation Station has tore down, and that took 1,500 megawatts. With the closures that have already happened, the grid is being exposed to significant strains already, and the industries that have entered the state right now will expect 2,000 to 2,500. Hopefully the ACC and feds are looking at continuously plans and developments. Lithium-ion battery technologies are not proving that they can handle megawatts of supplies safely. There are supply chain constraints just trying to keep up with electric vehicles and batteries needs met. I'm nervous as all get out.
You're doing great.
I'm not a public speaker, sorry. The Cholla power plant has already shut down 2 units. Unit 4, which represented 700 megawatts of power, and if the other unit shuts down in 24, that's an additional 400. There are solutions to be potential issues we are facing, and there should be some consideration to those. These plants' closure dates can be moved back until reasonable solutions have been put into place, and this will protect the ratepayers from extreme price hikes. The hikes are looking at 3 times more because coal sets the standard. We do long-term contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, Farmer. You did an amazing job. Next, we have Jennifer G. And in queue, we have Josh Anderson.
Good evening. Excuse me. My husband works for TEP, and he's been there for 7 years. And just want to give you a reference for the tax revenue that these communities lose. I don't live in St. John's. We live in Vernon, which is in Apache County, but we lived in Show Low previous. In 2012, the paper mill closed in Snowflake, and Navajo County lost $280 million in tax revenue. The school district alone in Snowflake lost $334,000 in tax revenue. The closure of these two plants and the plant in Joe City, you're talking 3 plants across 2 counties, but it's going to affect up to 10 cities, not just St. John's, not just Springerville. When the Navajo power plant closed in 2019, they lost $40 million in tax revenue. And you've talked about the transitional funds that these cities and counties seek, but when the Navajo NGS closed, and they asked for transitional funds, and APS pledged $144 million. The ACC said no, that they would only allow $14 million. And with the 3 plants closing across the 2 counties, I've read that it looks like 300 to 400 jobs, but it's actually 1,100 or more, because you're talking about contractors coming in. You're also talking about the revenue that these employees put into these cities and counties, because they're spending their money there. They're raising their families there, they're buying their food there. And then if they leave because they don't have work here, they're taking their spouses, who are nurses and teachers and business owners, along with them. And we don't live close to a metropolitan area, and so it's been proven that rural communities like ours die because of the lost tax revenue. I know the gentleman before me mentioned the UK, and I just read that they are actually asking coal plants to delay their closures because they cannot, the demand for power is higher than what they're looking to move to, and they can't support that demand without the coal plants. Another question is that why is Arizona, is that a sign? No. Why is Arizona trying to model the energy portfolio of places like California?
Great catch, though, on the mic.
I play softball. When California's power or their energy source falls short over and over with rolling blackouts year after year, and our coal plants here in Arizona are the ones that are sending them power to make up for what they can't do. Seems like what they're doing isn't working. And honestly, I don't see the infrastructure going up in Arizona. I don't see windmills going up, and the ones that do, between Snowflake and Holbrook, are buying the power from TEP to provide for the customers that they have. Our family took a trip to northern Texas back in January, and when you drive through there, on the 40, you see fields of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of windmills. And it's my guess, because there's homes underneath those windmills, that these farmers were told, let us buy your land and put these windmills up. You're going to profit off of that. And maybe they are, but the towns didn't. When you go through those several little towns, small like St. John's, Snowflake, small like those towns, they're dead. There's maybe a gas station, maybe a restaurant open, but everything else is boarded up, falling apart, and gone. The wind turbines, 250 wind turbines provide 4 jobs. 4 jobs. When you're trying to make up for 1,100. I also was looking into this. The ACC, there was and I might be wrong, nuclear gas plant that wanted to expand down in the valley, and it was voted no to expand that. So if you're not willing to expand that, what makes the ACC willing to bring in a gas or nuclear plant in our area to make up for the plants that are closing? Instead, you could pledge to help the existing plants become more efficient. And I will say that TEP is at a higher efficiency than they're regulated to be. And I'm pretty sure that's at least 98 to 99% already. So that's all I have to say. I wanted to use facts and figures and not bring emotion into this. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have Josh Anderson, and next in queue we have Sue Ann Collins.
Good evening. My name is Josh Anderson. I'm here as a local community member tonight, and I just, first of all, I appreciate the commission being here. You picked not a relatively windy day, so nice work. So you did good there. So as a member of this community, I'm from the Valley. I grew up in Mesa. My wife grew up in St. John's. We specifically moved here 17 years ago because this is where we wanted to grow our family. It's a big deal to us to raise our children in the values of small community, to learn the service to others, and to learn those values and skills. My 2 children that have left the house, they grew up in this high school. And because of our great NAVIT program, they have great careers today, which is all attributed back to the funding and the good jobs that these communities provide. So when you live in a small town, especially, you learn to wear lots of different hats. You learn to quickly jump in and serve on different boards and communities. If I look around this room, pretty much everybody in this room serves one another in one capacity or another, and that is huge. That's why we're here. That's what makes these communities great. Part of what we do in our little part of how we help is my wife and I have served as the Apache County managers, Apache County Fair managers for the last 11 years. It's a great service. It's you pull your hair out a lot, but it is. Thank you. So one of the things that, by the way, this is the last standing free entry fair there is in the state. Even with all of the good jobs that these power plants provide, this is still pretty struggling communities. And we're very happy and proud to provide that service of a free community event for our people. One of the things that we're really proud of serving with the fair, and by the way, if you look at any event around town, you're going to see TEP posters and banners, you're going to see SRP posters and banners, and you're going to see banners of all of the businesses that are supported by these great communities. That is huge. Without that funding, none of these events can happen. So one of the things that we're very proud of serving with the local fair is aside from providing a great service to our communities, is strengthening and pushing forward our youth. I 100% believe that if you have strong youth, you're going to have strong adults and citizens, productive citizens. So just our little part of what we do, and that could not even happen close to what it is without the great jobs and the funding and the donations from these power stations. So I appreciate you guys being here tonight, and I would invite you want to have a great time and really see a close-knit community. Come up to the fair. It's perfect weather in September. Like I say, it's free, and the funnel cakes are good. But please come by and see what this is about right here. So in closing, I ask the commission to do everything in your power. You know, we understand that there's going to be a transition away from coal. We understand that. But please do everything in your power to make that a good and just transition. Let's not forget, for the last 40 years, the service that these power stations have provided for the state of Arizona and these people that run it. That is a huge endeavor, and that should be not forgotten in the future. And so please, again, I ask that guys do everything you can to help us out here and let these little rural towns and these awesome communities survive. So thank you.
Thank you. Josh, if you could hold, Commissioner O'Connor has a question for you.
What date in September is your fair?
Yes. So what is it, September 7, 8, 9? So it's the weekend after Labor Day in September. So, yeah, please come up. I'll buy the funnel cakes. So.
Thank you. We're marking it down, Josh. We're all big fans of funnel cakes. Oh, yeah.
My name is Sue Ann Stradling Collins, and I'm going to talk about a few things. I know as you introduced me, it was Sue Ann Collins, and I go by that too, but Stradlings were part of the first families that came to St. John's, and so I kept that name on purpose. Very proud of my heritage, very proud to be part of St. John's. I'm a product of this high school, not the first class to graduate from here once it was built, but the second. And so this has wonderful memories for me. I went away to school and I came back and I taught here. And I taught with those who, I knew I was going to do this. I'm sorry. Anyone who knows me knows that Stradlings cry, and I cry too. Came back and taught for 16 years, and high school English. And I have taught a good part of those that are sitting in this audience, and I was privileged to do so, privileged to teach these. So many of our leaders, so many of those people who are standing up here talking to you are a product of this community, their ancestors, this education. I had the privilege of being an academic decathlon coach, and I want to point that out. They talked about coaches of sports. Our academic decathlon team, out of the 38 years roughly that we have had academic decathlon here, St. John's, this small little school, has won our regional competition 26 times. 26 times. And I don't know how many of you were on the team, but if you were, thank you. You could stand up. And I mean, it has brought an amazing amount of knowledge and success, learning, knowing how to interview, knowing how to do so many things. The academic decathlon program is amazing. And so I just want to mention that also. The main reason I'm standing here, though, is because I don't know what year it was. My great-grandmother was the first paid librarian, Viola Overson, in St. John's, Arizona. In August, I retired as the county librarian here in Apache County. So I was carrying on. I was carrying on that tradition, carrying on family, carrying on community. Proud to be able to say that. But I'd like to speak to the issue of libraries. There are 7 libraries here in Apache County, and without the funding of the plant, I don't know that we could continue with 7 libraries. And I don't know how many of the public understand how libraries are funded. I get people who say, it's your fines that we pay. If so, we would have no employees, by the way. That's not what does it. It is the tax base. And yes, there is a special tax fund that is paid by you because you own property here, but that does not cover hardly anything that we have in our libraries. It is the tax base by these 2 plants that allows us to have the libraries, the beautiful libraries that we have. They're amazing, and I hope that you got to see at least St. John's, but we have libraries. I say we, I'm retired, but it will always be we. Alpine, Concho, Greer, Round Valley, Sanders, St. John's, and Vernon are the 7 libraries. And so if these plants were to close, that is going to affect a large part of the county, because we would not have the funds to pay employees, to have the hours that we have. We have so many resources at our libraries, so many. Story time for children, computers for those who do not have access to computers, who can't afford them. They come to our libraries to search for jobs, to use the internet, to connect, to talk to our senators and hopefully the commissioners and so forth. And so I am passionate about libraries. I'm passionate about this community, passionate about the students that are here, my family, my friends. It's an amazing place, and I'd like it to continue to be so, and to have the resources to continue offering what our libraries offer, which are invaluable resources. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Joanne, thank you. Thank you for your service. We have Darren Hansen, and on deck, Amy Brown.
Good evening again, commissioners. I'm coming from Joseph City. I was not able to meet you, Commissioner Olson, last night. I want to thank you for being here as well. I hear the same stories. I feel the same impacts. I was recently watching a movie. It was a movie of a little guy in Africa. He was trying to go to school, and he couldn't even get admission to his library because his dad was a farmer, and he couldn't get the knowledge that he needed. And maybe you're familiar with the movie, I don't know. But what they lack over there was power. And this little guy had a vision that he could create this. So he's sneaking into the library, getting the books, and then he comes up with an idea that he can get this little generator off his sister's boyfriend's bike. And then he fights with his dad to get their only means of transportation to turn it into power. Power to water their fields. They had the water, but they had no power. Why did they not have power? Because they're being restricted with their knowledge. And it took this one little guy to come up with this. They thought he was crazy, but now he's been, it's been published as a movie and as in a documentary. Maybe you're familiar with it. I just hope that we don't ever get back to that point where we can't have the education that we need and the sustainability of the power that we need in these communities. There's so many wonderful products that come from these rural communities. Joe City's here to put their support behind St. John's as well. They have founding fathers just like we do. They went through the same struggles, through the same type of dirt, the same kind of wind, everything. But they're still here. And my hat's off to them. I feel their presence here. And I am so grateful that you guys are here and will consider and remember us here up here in the rural areas of Arizona, the important parts that we play. Thank you so much for everything you do. And please, if I can say anything to you, keep us in mind.
Thank you. Amy Brown, and on deck, C. Art Lee. Oh, yes, yes. C. Art Lee. He's coming up, and on deck we would have Daniel Holmes.
Hello, Commission members. I appreciate you being here. It's really a rare occasion to have folks of your caliber come and listen to the concerns of the people here, and I do appreciate it. My name is Art Lee. I'm a 34-year retired peace officer. I had 7 terms as the sheriff of this county, so I'm no stranger here. My concern is the same concern that I had when I heard that they were going to close the forest because of the spotted owl. And I've talked to many ranchers and many Forest Service employees since that time. I've yet to talk to one that's ever seen a spotted owl. It's just, so, in my opinion, that was a mistake, and it displaced a lot of people. It put a lot of people out of work, put businesses out of business, and I'm concerned for the people who work at these 2 power plants. And I appreciate the power plants. They have been a great asset to this county, and they do participate in all of the things that they need to be participating in. But when they finally close the door, I'm wondering if it's not going to be a mistake. And those kinds of mistakes you can't correct, because we're still closed down because of the spotted owl. And those jobs are never coming back. And I really hope that there's some way that they can look at this a little further, because our coal-fired plants don't cause the pollution that is reported in some of the press. You know, they have a requirement for them every year. It seems to go up, and the smoke is not bad here. I've lived in this community over 40 years, and I don't know of anyone that's ever had any ill effects over this coal-fired plant. And it's not just the people who live here who benefit from it. I know that there were some people driving clear from Sanders, Arizona here to work here, and other outlying areas, so they don't all live in St. John's proper. And then I listened to the Boilermaker. You know, those guys do maintenance on these plants, and their jobs are going to go away as well. So I just, if there's any relief you can give us to try to prolong this thing and not just shut them down, I'd appreciate it. And I thank you for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for your service as well, too. Daniel Holmes, and then we have Roger Roethlisberger, and then on deck as well we have Brittany Menency.
evening. I grew up in Phoenix, and I left this area for the aerospace industry. For 42 years I've been gone. But when it came time to retire, I came back to Arizona. But I didn't want to go back to cities because I'd been in a lot of small towns. And I love the atmosphere, and I love the people in small towns. But the aerospace industry is feast or famine. You get too much work or not enough. I was part of the shuttle redesign crew for the space shuttle boosters. And that plant went from 3,500 people to over 6,000. And then I watched as it went back down to 3,500. Over 2,500 people lost their jobs, and they had to leave. But it doesn't start with just everybody. The first people to leave are the people with the best skills and the highest knowledge. They see it coming, and they leave. And then it just trickles down. And you see houses going up for sale or being repossessed by the banks. You see a lot of damage. And that damage comes from having a single sole source of income for the county or for the area. I mean, I saw it time and again because we'd build up with a new contract. As soon as that contract's gone, maybe 2 years if you're lucky, and it collapses again. And it went over and over again. I moved up to Seattle because I got laid off. Well, the fools laid me off at 55 after a 30-year career, and I had a grandfathered pension, so they were paying me not to come to work. And then 12 years, I was up there in Seattle. 5 years ago, I bought land down here in Concho. And I've been trying to work to get it to where I can live down here. I'm kind of scratching by, but I saw the same thing happen there. Single diversity, single industry in an area, it collapses the economy every time. You need diversification in this area, but you need diversification in skilled jobs. All the rest of the jobs will follow. The doctors, the nurses, the lawyers, the bank clerks, gas station attendants, all that will follow. But you need to get a little bit of diversification, and it needs to be skilled. Thank you.
Honorable Corporation Commission members, I'm Roger Roethlisberger. It's not very often that you actually get to see the results of one of your biggest worries. And so I want to back up a little bit. I was elected to the St. John City Council back in the early 2000s. I spent 2 terms on the council. We were presented with a document, and it was not clearly identified where this document came from, but we were asked as a council to adopt this sustainability document. I read it clear through. It was shocking. I could not believe it. They want to run me out of my home, force me into the city? Why would they want to do that? I read it again before we ever voted on it. I voted no. The council voted no. Apache County adopted it. So I think what's going on right now, I might be wrong, but is being driven by that philosophy that has brought that to us right now. And I don't understand why they'd want to take away one of the above or all of the above. I mean, that was beat into our brow for decades from our presidents. All of the above, I promise. But now here we are. And so we're being forced out or transitioned, if you will. I don't know if you guys see that, but I'm pretty black and white as far as you either support or you don't support. And so I just want you guys to think about, do you support that philosophy, which, by the way, after doing research, it comes from the United Nations. It was adopted by them. It was brought forward by George H.W. Bush. It's taken this long for it to take hold, but it has a hold of us, and it's taking us. And so you guys have the power to put the brakes on it, slow it down, redirect it. Have you ever bought a new car and kept your old junker out back? And then you're driving down the road and bam, all of a sudden your new car's disabled, and what do? You go back and get your old junker. We got some heavy iron up here on the mountains that has saved the grid many times, and I'm just wondering what's going to save you once we're gone. If we do transition, let's put something up here that will help our community. If we're not going to generate power, let's generate something green that eats up carbon. We're going to have a lot of wells that are going to be floating around out there, and maybe those can be used to grow crops or things like that, things to generate. But I'd like to see us slow down a little bit in this rush to get rid of coal, because for one thing, the batteries are not proven. I know how long batteries last. That's going to be one of my requests, is I'm buried with all my batteries and tires, wore out tires, because batteries do not last if you charge them fast and uncharge them fast, unless they've got some secret they're not sharing with us. So it's not a proven thing yet, and we're being flooded by California solar, which, man, it's easy. That stuff's free. We got to get it. But in order for Arizona first to work, we have to start working for Arizona. And I don't know any of the globalists. I don't know any of those globalists that are behind Agenda 21, now Agenda 2030, and all these other things, but they don't have our best interest in heart. And you guys are one of us. And so I'm hoping that you'll choose us and not them, and we'll work our way through this, and we'll all get along fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Next, we have Brittany, and then on deck, Mark Platt and Levi Udall. Oh, okay. Oh, we got Chief in the house. Well, Chief, come on up.
Commissioner Tovar, Commissioner O'Connor, Commissioner Olson, it's nice to see you in person finally. I have the privilege of leading the St. John's Police Department. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch my breath. Had a family emergency, but if any of my guys would be back here if they could. And I had to come up the stairs and run a little bit, so I haven't had to do that in a while. So the St. John's Police Department has 12 employees, 3 civilian professional support staff, 9 certified police officers. If the power plant closes, that's our biggest employer. Drastic changes will happen at the police department, and not just within the police department. I can say that there will probably be changes with the ambulance and fire departments. We're all from here. We do everything we can to protect this community. If they do leave, we don't even have reliable communications here. I was talking to my father who had a medical emergency, and the phone turned off. Frontier again, strikes again for a 5-minute window. I'm targeted, I swear. We need something that other business will come here, because if the internet's not here, if 911's not here, how do we do our job? How do we attract other businesses when Frontier, quite frankly, doesn't care? Their quarterly report is a bunch of fluff. The only thing they've done is put boxes in racks. There's still no redundancy. If the line gets cut, a business or a person that has to use 911, it will go through their phone lines, even if it's cellular. There's a point that it uses the landlines. We have two crises: a lack of communication systems that are adequate to provide for public safety or any type of enterprise, and a coal plant that may close down, that shouldn't close down, or we need to come up with an alternative to keep this community alive, not just this community, the region. So with that, please do something.
Thank you, Chief, and I pray that your father gets better. Mark Platt is up next, Levi Udall on deck, and Brett Overson. Mark had to go. Okay. Levi Udall, Brett Overson.
Hello, Commissioners. I personally, and on behalf of the community, would like to thank you guys very much for coming down. I know how stressful it was for everybody to hear once the shutdown dates for the power plants were announced, and there was a lot of grief and anxiety, and we kind of felt hopeless. Like none of us had any capability to do anything at all. So seeing you guys here and understanding what you can do for us just kind of gives us a big wave of hope. And I just kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the early roots of St. John's. So I'm a Udall, and like many of the people that have talked before, they mentioned that there were lots of early settlers that came here. So initially it was, you know, a bunch of Catholic settlers, and then came the Mormons, and there was just a handful of them. And they came and they built this city. I guarantee that the last names of all those settlers, the Mormons and the Catholics, everybody that was there, I guarantee 95% of those names still live in this town and are relatives of those people. So our roots go deep. We care about being here. And there's so many of us that say, you know, I wish that I could stay, but if the power plants go, it looks like my hands are tied. I'm going to have to leave. There's going to be some of us, I'm sure, that have the determination to stay and stick it out and try, but we've become very, very dependent on what these power plants give us. I personally, I'm an operator at one of the power plants. My brother's an operator. My father is and was an operator and still is. And we've given a lot. The people who work at these power plants, we've all given a lot. Not only us, but our land that surrounds us. We've given a lot of our land. The land has given a lot to these power plants. And I would just like to, I guess, in my mind, like what everybody's been talking about, we can have the argument of whether renewables are efficient or not, or, you know, we could probably argue all day about those things. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell us when these things are actually going to shut down, but I see, you know, three things happening. One, if the grid really can't sustain itself and they decide to keep these plants open, you guys help them to keep the plants open or whatever, we'll run these plants for another 1,000 years, if that's what you guys help us to do. But the second thing that I see is maybe there's some sort of conversion that can take place, and we would love for that to happen. And whatever conversion, whatever new businesses are brought, we all have a good work ethic. It's a lot of work to run these power plants that we have, and we're willing to take head on anything that does come, whether it be a nuclear or biomass, like they talked about. Whatever it may be, we can handle it, we can work it, we can run it. And the third option is they end up pulling through, shutting these things down. And if that happens, I would just ask that the Commission and SRP and TEP don't forget the sacrifice that we've given. we've taken pride in keeping these units running. Like they said, we've saved the grid a lot of times. We've had a lot of heartache trying to keep these things running at times. And the commission and SRP and TEP have a lot of capability in helping us if they decide to shut these down. There's a lot of things that can be done. So I just like to say that and extend that to you guys. And again, thank you for coming. Again, I'm very hopeful for the future, and thank you again.
Thank you, Levi. We have Brent, and then Carson Crosby, and then Joe Green.
Hello, commissioners. I want to say thanks again for being here. It was a last-minute decision to fill out the white card. Kind of regretting it now. In large part because I don't know what I can add as the meeting's gone on. There have been a lot of good points made. I appreciate the way fellow community members have stepped up and reminded me why our community is so great. So I'll just give you briefly my perspective. My dad moved his little family here to St. John's 40-some years ago and got a job at the plant and stayed there until he retired just a few years ago. I graduated from St. John's High, spent a lot of time here in this room. I went down to the Valley. Mine's a familiar story. I went down to the Valley, went to Arizona State University, got a degree, got married, started my own little family, and was living in Gilbert. We lived there for about 15 years. As my kids started to grow, I became concerned. I saw that they were not necessarily having the same type of experience that I was in their schools and with their friends. It felt homogenous. I said to my wife often that it's vanilla living here. A lot of same types of people, same types of experiences, same types of incomes. And I was worried that my kids might be somewhat missing out. So we made the move and brought them up here, back home to St. John's. It may seem contrary to conventional thinking that a small town could enhance the diversity of an experience, but I feel like it really did for me, and it does for everyone. Socially, economically, academically, it gives us a broad experience. We have opportunities in lots of different areas of life, and it's been mentioned that there's a lot of great people that have left this community, gone a lot of great things. We brought our 5 kids up, added a couple more since we've been here, and now most of them are gone, and they are out making the world a better place. They're adding to the legacy of this little community, and I think that's not an accident. It's because of the environment that communities, not just St. John's, but other communities like this in the area are able to create. And I think I guess I just hope that might add to the argument that these types of communities are worth fighting for and doing everything we can in our power to help to keep viable. Thanks.
First of all, commissioners, thank you for coming to our communities and listening to us. Also would like to thank all the people in the audience. we're not just St. John's, but I see so many of my friends from Springerville, Eager, Snowflake, Taylor, Sholo, Lakeside, lots of people, and we are a community of multiple towns, and Vernon, Alpine, all of these communities here. We are all together and united because this affects us all. I wear quite a few hats in my life, and I'll just explain a few of them. First, some of the ones I cherish most. I'm a husband and a father. My ancestry came here with the pioneer stock. I happen to live on family land and get the privilege of helping my dad farm land. My dad is 82 years old, and I love it here. I'm also a business owner, and I consider myself an environmentalist. My wife and I have a small business here, and we have 13 employees, 3 full-time and 10 part-time. We love those employees, and we love being able to serve our community by giving jobs, and we love the support that our community gives us as well. I also work as a maintenance supervisor at Tucson Electric Power, and in that role we take great pride in the environment and striving to maintain our equipment so that we provide clean power. And I appreciate all of those that are in this audience from SRP, Choya, and Tucson Electric Power that strive to keep our power plants in regulation. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes, but we love doing it, and we take great pride as employees in doing that. And I'm grateful for the power plants for what they bring to our communities. As an environmentalist, as a steward of the land, and probably not the type of environmentalist that you might think, I do not consider myself part of the conflict industry that sues the federal government over and over again using EGF funds. I disagree with that. But I love our land, I love our forests, and I love being able to go out there and take care of our forests and our lands and being stewards of that land and seeing our land benefits our families and our communities. And I love seeing people from the valley come up and use our land that they think they are environmentalists of. And they give their money to these conflict industries that sue time and time again the people who try to protect them. And so many times our politicians, our Forest Service, the Corporation Commission succumb to the voices of these people that sue over and over again with federal dollars. And I'd like to ask, how many people in here have ever sued one of our government agencies? Please don't listen to those voices, but listen to the true environmentalists that are stewards of our land. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you guys for coming, and thanks, Karsten. It's a hard act to follow up. Hey, I'm Joe Green, and I'm everybody that's been talking tonight is power plant workers, families of power plant workers. My dad was a power plant worker. He spoke a bit ago. And then you got Joe Green. I'm a trash man. I'm not just a trash man, I'm the trash man. I didn't choose to go the power plant route because I found a passion, serving people. That's what I do. I serve people. I enjoy it. I'm also on the city council. I'm an elder in my church, and I just love St. John's, but I'm not going to talk to you about the past of St. John's because, quite frankly, I don't know much about it. I do know that the Udalls, you guys were pretty rowdy individuals, like to shoot at the Barths and whatnot, and I know a little bit. I know today's date, I know how St. John's comes together, but I'm going to tell you about the future of St. John's. You get rid of industry. First of all, I got elected into the city council just in time for the power plants to announce, hey, we're gonna be closing down in 10 years. You know, so, hey, we hired somebody in that is very valuable and is helping us a lot, and the city has made leaps and bounds just for the short time because we see what's coming. We can see through the fog, we can see the future. And the future is tumbleweeds rolling down St. John's Lake today, or like a couple days ago when the wind's blowing. Tumbleweeds, but there's nobody to pick them up. The future is a dusty old town that nobody wants to come to because there's no value in the town because power plants pulled out. And it's not the power plant's fault. I know it's not SRP's fault. I know it's not Unisource or TEP's fault. It's ADEQ. It's those that are regulating these power plants to death. So, you know, we should start regulating the regulators and stopping them from beating us up and giving us a bloody nose. You know, I'll clap for myself. I'll tell you, that's where it needs to end. And I don't know enough about power plants, but my dad's told me enough, you know, to know that they are clean burners. Both of them, they're clean burners. It's not the environment we're destroying, it's the environmentalists destroying the power plants. And to go on that, green energy, just real quick, I want to throw on green energy. I'm not going to say it's a joke. I'm going to say everything has its use. But I'm going to say as far as green energy goes, plug in your car, your electric car. Biden said 2030 or whatever, he's trying to get everybody electric cars only, and Washington's made their vows of doing this, you know, 2030, nobody but electric cars in the state type of thing. Plug in those cars when you don't have power plants. Plug in those cars when it's a cloudy day. Expect to drive. Just saying, wind generators, the wind is enormous here, 80 or 70 mile an hour winds last week. I mean, we could really have those ugly things up on the mountain, it would do great. But they're still unreliable for the non-windy season, right? At the end of the day, what we found out in this community is the power plants work. So why are we shutting down the power plants? And I talk to you guys because you guys are here to listen. So I finally get a platform to speak my mind. You know, this is great. But along with all these things, I just wanted to, I guess, I didn't come prepared really. I sat out there and made a bunch of notes, but I'm not following them. But what I am going to say is little old guy, knuckle dragger Joe, that never went on to college, never went on to do these great and mighty things that I probably could have. I'm going to do those great and mighty things starting here. And starting here, we have to have St. John's. We have to have St. John's in 10 years. Springerville, Sholo, there's people that come from Navajo County to work over here. I don't know how many employees. I know there's a lot of cars coming in and out for SGS and TEP as well. But it's not just St. John's that's going to suffer. It's St. John's that's standing up saying, we've got to do something now. We've got to replace this. And so I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate you guys listening to me. And I hope that something I said is valuable. And along with that, I want to throw in Frontier, Chief Spivey. I'm gonna say real quick with Frontier. You guys are the regulators of the commission, of the corporations and stuff like that. Frontier's a joke. Frontier needs to be replaced in this area. Frontier needs to go. All this opposition that we've had trying to bring in broadband, we've had so much opposition in St. John's. St. John's has worked 2.5 years now trying to bring in broadband because Frontier is a joke, and I pay $56 a month for something that I can barely talk on my Ring camera. Paul came over and it was horrible trying to talk to him on my camera. You know, that's not what it's supposed to be. I don't pay 56 hard-earned dollars to not be able to use the services. And I appreciate you guys, and I hope that you can do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for your service as well. We have Tony Lindsay, Steve Coombe, and Ralph Bushman.
ACC, we're glad you're here. We're appreciative of your time coming up to the mountain and spending the evening with us. I'm on the city council. I'm on the executive staff at Navapache Electric. My CEO had a family emergency, couldn't be here. I'm not going to speak for him. I'm going to give my perspective on it as we talk about things. But first of all, I have a daughter, my middle daughter. She married a kid from here. They moved to Fort Worth, Texas. And about a year ago, There was a huge storm there. In places in Texas that hadn't seen snow in 100 years, all of a sudden had a foot of snow. My son in Austin, Texas, had a foot of snow in his yard. My daughter, newlywed, her house was 20 degrees for 2 weeks because there was no power. And the reason there was no power is all the solar panels had a foot of snow on them. All the windmills froze solid. They weren't turning, even though there was still a gentle breeze going across the plains of Amarillo. They were frozen solid. They had imbalanced their grid so much to the point with these renewables that they could not sustain the grid. And they had shut down so many coal plants, there was nothing they could do. And they're still trying to recover from that. Why would we follow that example? Why would we follow what California's doing? Kind of going that way with overbalance of renewables. Our coal-fired generators are baseload generators. They put pressure on the grid. They push that electricity. Solar and wind do not. Who's the balancing authority for this Four Corners area, for this part of the United States? We will lose that if we lose these two power plants. We love these power plants. They've done a lot for our community. We don't want to see them leave. So at Navapache, our service area consists of southern Apache Navajo County and all of Catron County, New Mexico. We have about 43,000 meters that we serve. We buy our power from TEP. For many decades, we bought it from P&M over in New Mexico. We were paying 3 times the going rate for power from P&M. TEP gave us, we went to bid, they won it, we buy 95% of our power through them. We buy power from people that live in our service area, that generate that power, and it works great, and they're very reliable and dependable. It's nice to have a local provider. We don't want to see that go away. So we moved here, my family moved here to St. John's in 1974. As a young teenager, I worked for the farmers and ranchers in town. There were 3,300 acres under cultivation that time for farms, and there were 30, 40 families that had ranches. As the power plants came in, started hiring the children of these farmers and ranchers, pretty soon they lost interest in their farms and ranches. A lot of these families sold. They sold out. They sold their water rights to SRP and to TEP, and they control those wells now. If they leave and go back, and they're no longer here, we want our water back. We want to be able to cultivate and have farms and ranches. Lastly, we believe you represent us. We elect you to do what's best for all of us citizens, for Arizona. We don't want to copy California. We don't want to copy Texas. Arizona is a very unique state in the union. We're very complex with the diversity of people that we have and how we came into being a state. We don't want to be loony California. We want to be Arizona. We want you to represent us well as you determine the future of the source of power and how we live our lives here. We want to maintain our lifestyle here in St. John's. What happens in the next couple of years, these power plants, is going to greatly affect that. So we look for you to look out for us. And I'm not upset or angry with the power plants. They've been a great partner, has been well spoken to our schools and to lots of different organizations within our communities. And so we're glad that they're here. But we don't want to lose that infrastructure that's out there. Thank you.
My name's Steve Combe. Thank you for the opportunity. I have some simple questions. If SRP and Tucson Electric don't make a profit, they'll shut down. Even with all the care from this community, they'll shut down. So my question is, respectfully, what are you going to do to help them? They're political powerhouses, they're not weak, but what are you going to do to help them? And then secondly, in addition to that, the city of St. John's, the city of Springerville, and Apache County, what is their 10-year economic plan? And what are you going to do to help them? Thank you.
Next, we have Ralph Bushman, and up on deck, Rachel Williams.
Thank you, commissioners, for coming. I was not planning to speak at all tonight, so I have no notes. But as I've sat here, I felt a need to share a slightly different perspective than has been told here. I am a Joseph City native, born and raised there, worked for APS, and about 11 years ago I transferred over to the TEP plant and worked in Springerville. I retired from there last September. The IRP, I want to talk about the Integrated Resource Plan that TEP submitted it was in, I think, May or June of 2021, I believe. I've read that thing, read it front and backwards, read it many times. To keep this short, my concern with reading that, and it's probably a good thing I'm retired, and I have taken my full pension, so I already have that in my bank. But TEP, I cannot speak for SRP, but TEP, and as I read the IRP, and I actually know the individual who was the main contributor to the IRP. I've worked with him some. A good man, since passed away, but a good man. But as I read that IRP, I did not read his work. My opinion of that IRP was that it was completely politically motivated from the top of TEP down by politics, by the world that we're in that says coal and gas have to go away with no science behind it. I'm an engineer, electric power engineer, graduated with a master's degree from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in upstate New York, and have been completely in power the whole time, so understand it. Understand the ramifications of the batteries that have been talked about here, the inability of them to provide the reliability that the world, the politics, want to make us think that renewables will solve the world's problems. They will give us the reliability that they can. Right now, they cannot, in my opinion. And I believe I have a lot of science behind me that backs that, if you can separate that from the politics. So my plea to you, and just as a note, about 12 years ago, while I was still working at the Cholla plant, our plant manager got us the opportunity to go visit the windmill farm that was being put in between Joseph City, or between Holbrook and Snowflake. We got there, it had been in commercial operation for about 6 months. And I happened to see a screen that had total megawatt hours produced by that wind farm in the last 6 months. That total, and you'll understand this, was 250, give or take, megawatt hours that it had produced in 6 months. Coming from Cholla, little Cholla Unit 1, 115 megawatt unit, puts that out in 2 hours. You understand that. So my plea to the commission, and yes, my roots go back in these communities, back to the founding fathers of these communities. I want to see them thrive, and all of that that's been said. I don't need to reiterate that. But my plea to the commission is, please let technology, let engineering, and solid facts drive what the companies do. Because TEP, as the one that has said in their IRP, we will close Unit 1 in 2027. It'll go into seasonal operation in 2024. I don't have the numbers in front of me. And we'll close the other one in 2032. But if you look at their resource plan that it goes out, there is no way they're going to meet that without reliability issues. And I don't buy my power from TEP, but the people in Tucson, their prices are going to go way up. So please drive the utilities to use engineering, technology, and the facts, not politics, and we'll be so much better off. Thank you.
Rachel Williams.
Hi. So I really did not plan at all to get up here tonight. I thought about a lot of the things, and I echo the thoughts of a lot of the people that have stood before you tonight. I also work for TEP and have for going on 18 years. I'm not really here to be a representative of TEP. That's not my business. And you have heard plenty from everybody, and I agree with everything they say, especially that man that just talked before me, Ralph Bushman. If anybody knows his stuff, it's that man. And he can give you invaluable information. Anybody who listens to him for any amount of time and spends time with him will tell you that he is very intelligent and he does his research. Having said that, I'm also essentially a native to the area. My mother's family was part of the pioneer effort that founded Joseph City. And so I feel tied to this area, even though I now live in Round Valley and I love it over there. One of the things that I want to talk about, I'm involved with a number of nonprofits in the area, and I see a lot of the need, and there is a lot of need in this county and in Navajo County. The power plants contribute so much to the nonprofits that I work with. They will be non-existent. There's no doubt about it. One of the ones that I work with really closely, both TEP and SRP contribute a great deal of money and time. They allow us time to put money into these nonprofits, or to put efforts into these nonprofits. Our vendors between those two plants, I've seen them raise well into $100,000 in a year for nonprofits in this area, just our vendors. And that's just money that we can use it any way we need to. It's just to better the individuals in this community that need the money and need the funding. And it goes to individuals. It doesn't go to an organization who then decides. It goes to individuals who are in need. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot tonight, as we've been talking about as TEP and SRP employees and other people who are very well employed as myself, and I think we all feel really grateful and blessed for that. When you see the other side of that coin directly, and you see people that are truly struggling and extremely grateful for, even though it may seem like a lot of money, $100,000 in, help seems like a lot when we're just talking about it here, but when you see the amount of people that need that help and what it does for them is such a minimal thing, but their gratitude is something that I can't put into words. You only can understand if you see it. And I've seen it for years, so many years since I've worked for TEP. I think about those people and what's going to happen to them. A lot of them won't be able, me and my family would be able to afford to go, like literally move somewhere else if we had to. We would have the means to pick up and move. I can tell you that with working with some of these families, they wouldn't. And the amount of money that would be taken out of this area would directly affect them. I mean, it could literally put some of these people in complete poverty, and a lot of them are close already. And they would have nowhere to go. And without funding and without that sustainability, I truly have a concern for those individuals. And obviously I want to keep my job. I mean, I'm not wanting to leave. I would love to stay. But I've already been really blessed. There's plenty of people that haven't. And I think that these power plants have blessed every person's life in this county, whether directly or indirectly. And I want you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm glad you decided to speak. We had other residents that filled out the white forms but indicated they did not want to speak. And some have comments as well too that we'll make sure that we'll put into the docket as well too. Right now I'll open up the mic for anyone that feels they want to come up and share anything right now.
Once again, I'm Mike Green, and I spoke to you earlier. I'm the guy's horse. I wanted to comment about New Covenant Church Community Food Bank. We service, well, every 2 weeks, we hand out anywhere from 250 to 300 food boxes to people who are truly in need. Rachel really hit on this. This is going to devastate this community, this county. And already we are, according to the Arizona Republic, azcentral.com, that we are one of the most food insecure counties in our country, not in our state, in the United States. And right now, losing these power plants would be very detrimental. I know you can't stop that. I know that's beyond your power. I want to go on record saying that dirty coal, as it's been called, go out to Springerville Generating, walk around, take a look. Go look at the SEMS numbers. That's a screen that has our, well, I don't work there anymore, but it has their emissions readings on them, way below what they're called to. Now I'm speaking unintelligently at this point. I've heard of something called Colawyo coal. Comes up from the Colorado-Wyoming border. So far, it's not profitable to bring it down here and burn it at Springerville, but I've heard people talk, so I'm talking secondhand. But I've heard Unit 1 and 2 can burn that stuff and not have to run wall blowers. Wall blowers clean the soot off the boiler walls. And they can run that like that for extended periods. They can make 450 megawatts per unit with 4 mills instead of 5. That gives them 2 on standby. 1 to be rebuilt, 1 to be on standby. There are other alternatives, and this is my challenge to you, please. Look to see what can be done. If TEP SRP no longer find it worth their while to want to be associated in this community area, maybe there's another utility who could come in and take over, rebuild what's left. Maybe there's another way. And I'm challenging you, please, help us out. Thank you.
I am Scott Waite. I'm also fifth generation in St. John's. I graduated from St. John's High School in 1981, went off to college, been gone for a little over 40 years, now I'm back. Ended up getting a PhD in chemistry, I've actually done some research in carbon capture for power plants and return that. So no coal-fired plants can be run cleanly and efficiently. Right now, the energy balance is not that great, but I have confidence that it can be done and it should be done. My concern now is the big push for the country to have electric cars and everybody to move to electric cars. Now, being kind of a scientist, I'm kind of a numbers geek, so I did some calculations a few weeks back to look at that. And if you replace every single car in America with an electric car, did some calculations, how many cars there are, how many miles these cars are driven, how much power or how much efficient these new cars are, so how much electricity they're going to need, looked at the amount of power that is being generated in the United States today, and I figured out that between around 60 to 90% of the power generated in the U.S. today would be needed just to charge those new cars. And so we're going to have to increase our electricity by 60 to 90%, maybe even 100%, to be able to charge all of our electric cars. And that does not even count the trucks and other big vehicles like that. So I can see there's going to be a huge increase in the need for electricity. And I would propose and ask that we not shut these plants down until we find an alternative source of electricity so that we can have the electricity that we need. To me, it makes no sense to shut down power plants when the need for electricity is only going to be increasing. And I appreciate you guys coming here to listen to us, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. We do have Kathy E. Williams to speak.
For being here. Public speaking is not exactly my forte, but I really felt it was important to speak up for SRP and TEP because I do a lot of volunteer work at the senior center and they help us out tremendously. We have more services for our seniors and our disabled because of what they donate. They've just really been a tremendous help. I'm a newcomer to Arizona. I moved from Michigan in 2009. I love it here. This is a tremendous community to live in. I bought a hybrid car, which is gas and electric, but that was my choice. I wasn't forced. I wasn't told, you have to do this. An electric car, you still need a coal plant to produce the electricity to plug it in. What? These people don't think. They lost their sense. I mean, you know, they've got to produce the electricity from either gas or coal. It doesn't just pop out of the air. The batteries require elements. We're not fighting with Russia, who has all the stuff we need. Hello! I don't know what is going on with these people that think they're in charge, but they're definitely not serving the people that they represent. And my understanding growing up was, you go into public service to represent the people, not corporations, not a political agenda. You care about the people that you're there to represent. You chose to represent those people, not somebody in China, not somebody that's going to give you big bucks just so that you can say, oh, well, we'll slide this through for you. SRP and TEP are very important to this community, to this county, and to the state. The amount of money and revenue that they create for us and the amount of good that they do in these communities is invaluable. the state as a whole, not just our community. And I thank you for your time and appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm glad you decided to speak. Well done. I'll put out for a last call to any last speakers.
My name is Ginger Wilbank. I have deep, deep roots in this, in southern Apache County. And I love this place. I was raised by parents who are environmentalists. They taught us to leave no trace. If we went camping, you picked up every speck of trash, you left everything as you found it, so that if the next person that came behind you came to camp in that same spot, they would never know you were there. So I grew up loving the land and taught to take care of it, and that it is our responsibility as stewards of the land to do our part, to do the research, to be responsible citizens of our communities. And that means that whatever we take, we give something back in return. And these power plants have done that. I'm not an expert in energy. I don't know what all goes into it. And I know that you all know the statistics. I don't have to tell you that. But from what I can see, what goes into a coal-powered plant is coal and water and people, and what comes out is steam and electricity. That seems like pretty clean energy to me. It affects, yes, it does affect the coal industry, and it affects the land where the coal is mined. But there is strict regulations on the coal, just like there is on the power plants. And there are regulations in place that require strict reclamation measures be put in place to recover areas that are mined for coal, and as well as the strict regulations for the power plants. So on that note, one windmill costs anywhere from $2 to $4 million to produce, depending on the size. It has an upkeep of about $50,000 a year, and it has a lifespan of about 20 years on the average. Not to mention the enormous footprint on the land that it takes. So then you've got solar, which also takes an immense footprint of the land. Our power plant takes a considerably small amount as far as a footprint is concerned on the land. And so you take all of those things, but then you consider the inputs and the outputs of solar, of wind, and battery powered, so electric cars. It costs about $100,000 to produce for one battery pack for an electric bus. And that you need one and you need a backup. So you have a $200,000 cost to run one electric bus just to keep it on the road all the time. And it only will go 50 to 150 miles on one charge. Then you have to charge it overnight to be able to run it again. In an area like this where we have a huge square miles for our school district, it requires a lot of miles on our buses. An electric bus is not efficient and it's not green for us. So you consider all these costs, but you consider the input and the output. It requires for it to go into the batteries, you still have to have the coal, you have to have the oil, you have to have the steel, you have to have all of that to make all of these parts that go into the green energy, the solar, the batteries. But then also at the output, the lifespan of those batteries is only going to be about 7 to 10 years. And then where does it go? It goes into our landfills. So you have the coal plants here that have the coal and the manpower and the water that go in, and all that comes out is energy and steam. But on the other side, you have all of these natural resources go in, and then you have toxic waste that comes out and bogs up our landfills for probably forever, because I don't see how they can how they can recover, and then all of that toxic waste seeps into the ground. And how do we know what that's going to do to our grandchildren and their grandchildren for generations to come? Is it going to contaminate their water that they need to drink? We don't know yet. But I can't look at this and then look at this and not experience a little bit of cognitive dissonance there, because it doesn't make sense. And so we've heard a lot about the economic impact of these power plants closing, but I would like you also to consider the environmental impact. The environmental impact. My grandfather was a logger. They closed the logging down because the environmentalists shut us down. The locals all said, don't do it. If you do, the mountains will burn. They did. We've lost over 1 million acres between 2 megafires on this mountain. Those mountains will never be replaced in our lifetime. We will not see that. Our grandchildren will not see what we saw. And so the locals know what they're talking about. We ask that the government listen to what we have to say, because we know we're vested in our communities. We wouldn't do anything to take away the hand that feeds us. We aren't going to destroy the land that provides for us. We have a vested interest, and we just hope that you will hear us and that you will fight for us. And I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Courtney Carter. I am actually a product of this community. My family came here 34 years ago, and wouldn't you know it, we're newcomers. So I watched a lot of individuals in my community come up and speak tonight, and there was something really special about it, in that very few of the individuals that came up to speak tonight didn't have a direct impact on my life. The reason that I bring this up is you know the numbers, you know the statistics, you see what's going on. Now I'm going to hopefully spark in you a little bit of emotion, because it's been my experience working with anybody for the most part. You can take in numbers, but if we can send you back with a little bit of a spark to fight for what we have here, maybe we stand a little better chance. This community, I came back here after leaving for 7 years because it offers something that you don't see elsewhere. We talk about progress and we see progress. We also know that sometimes progress can be toxic. Over the last, what has it been, almost 15 years since the iPhone came out? We've seen one of the greatest disconnects in our communities, in our families, everywhere as a result of progress in technology. This town is so much the same as it was when I was born 35 years ago. There has been a beautiful, slow progress in the change. Something is offered here that is being lost across our nation. And in it being lost, we're seeing a loss in values. We're seeing a loss in family structure. We're seeing a loss in so many other spaces that are affecting our entire society across the nation in epidemic proportions. What we have here in the small towns is something to so genuinely fight for, because the morals that are learned here, the family structure that's learned here, the education system that's learned here. I was actually one of Sue Ann's academic students. Like I said, there hasn't been very many individuals that came up tonight that haven't affected my life directly. Right here, Mr. Green, he was my spiritual leader through my teens. Roger, I'm pretty sure Roger's wife changed my diapers. But genuinely, what's learned here, our culture here, it doesn't just stay here. Like Mayor Udall talked and spoke about earlier, what gets developed here, what gets grown here, spreads. We produce incredible individuals. We produce incredible morals and hold morals and values that we're seeing lost in so many other places. And they carry out in our congressmen, they carry out in our senators, they carry out, and they're impactful. They're not just impactful here, they're impactful across our nation. And for that reason, I hope to maybe spark a little bit of that fight in the three of you to take it back and fight for what we've got here and see if we can't figure out how to sustain the economy, sustain what St. John's on a regular basis comes to save on the grid, and make sure that before we make rash decisions, before we make irresponsible decisions, that we have something sustainable to replace it, and that we maintain what is so rapidly being lost across our nation.
Thank you, Courtney.
My name's Ty Parker. I own a construction company here in town. And we've had the opportunity to work at Choya Power Plant, SRP and TEP. We employ about 20 to 30 employees. And we also get to do work for Navapache Electric. Because of that, I feel like our employees they've got to experience a lot better pay and probably work conditions than they had in the past, just because of the safety that's required at the plants and those kind of things, and working for utility companies. And so, therefore, their work experience has been a lot better working for us because of who we work for. And that's going to get lost if these plants go away. Another thing that nobody's brought up, we also help harvest the old fly ash out at SRP. That fly ash goes into concrete, and that fly ash is shipped all over the state. When that goes away, your concrete prices are going to go up. And more than likely, what's happened in the past is when coal plants go away here, they get shipped overseas. And so that fly ash is going to be probably shipped back to us at a higher price. And so then we're just losing one more thing to foreign governments to have a little bit more control over our economies that we lose. And all of that is, as I believe, is a political scheme by other countries. So I would just keep that in mind when you think about this, that it's, there's more things produced out there at the power plant than just power. So thank you.
Thank you, Ty.
Hi, my name's Stephen Palmer. I wear a couple hats, and I just want to add to one thing that was said by Josh Anderson. One of my hats I wear is a principal here at the high school, and there's a difference between someone who comes to me and says, hey, I think you guys should change this, and then walks away, and someone who comes up and says, hey, what if we did this and I helped out? I'm also what's called a stake president, a church leader here, and I've been able to, since being in that position, see the amount of donations financially, the amount of sacrifices, the amount of service that's gone on, not just in our church, because I've rubbed shoulders with Pastor Green and others. Our entire community, this is not, I guess what I want to say is this isn't a community that's asking for a handout. This is a community that has given their all and is just asking to help us where we can't help ourselves.
Thank you, Principal Stephen.
Good evening. I had the pleasure of speaking last night at Joe City. Spoke more on a personal level than I did as wearing my company hat. I'll speak a little bit more from the perspective of Salt River Materials Group. As I mentioned last night to Ms. Tovar and Mr. O'Connor, I'm Director of Pozzolan Manufacturing. I'm responsible for the production of fly ash from these power plants in northern Arizona and New Mexico. So we have coal ash contracts at Choya here in St. John's at Coronado, the Four Corners Power Plant, and up at San Juan. And then we also happen to have Apache down at Wilcox, where you'll be going at some point in the next month or so. In northern Arizona here, we directly employ at least 30 employees, and Ty Parker took the words right out of my mouth. He's our contractor for our landfill operations for excavation here at the landfill. So indirectly, we full-time support another 8 individuals working there. It is our mission to supply the state of Arizona and the surrounding states with fly ash, cement, aggregates. Our footprint is primarily in the Phoenix area and our cement plant in Clarkdale, but we are the largest regional supplier of fly ash and pozzolans to support concrete market here in the state. The opportunities that the power plants present us are incredible. As you've heard, most of these individuals and members of the community have spoken that the power goes down the mountain, and so does the fly ash. Every concrete sidewalk you walk on, every concrete highway you drive on, every concrete hallway you walk through in your buildings, all of that is filled with fly ash from these power plants. And if it weren't for that, the carbon emissions from the concrete due to the increased usage of cement in that concrete would go up quite a bit. So these power plants are deemed environmentally dangerous by many individuals, but the fact remains that a lot of the modern benefits that you get in cities especially don't exist without these power plants. And I would also posit this: are you 3 native Arizonans or been around long enough? You all know about the 5 C's, right? Well, there's a hidden 6th C that's been in the development for the last 50 to 60 years: coal. We have lots of it. We have lots of it in Arizona. We have lots of it in New Mexico. And if you remember history, the 2 were once joined as the New Mexico Territory and then carved out and made into 2 states. These power plants, most of them until Coronado and Springerville started burning Wyoming coal, burned New Mexico coal and Arizona coal. That 6th C helped spring Arizona into the modern age from the early 50s when it was just getting going. AC, climate, it wouldn't have worked without AC, and it wouldn't have worked without the electricity from these power plants. You're not going to get that from a windmill. A windmill's not going to generate fly ash. Yeah, a windmill might generate some power, but if you drive by the windmills just north of Snowflake on a really windy day, they're not spinning. They have restrictions on how often they can run and under what wind speed conditions. So yeah, it's windy, but it doesn't generate. The same thing goes for I can't remember the name of it, but there's the new station just east of Springerville, and the same thing is going to go for it. In fact, all the concrete foundations for those has fly ash from Troy. So the infrastructure that's being built for this so-called new green economy is coming from the so-called, bad power industry. And it's not bad. It creates hundreds of thousands of jobs within this country. And it's built the West, and it's built the East. And you guys do have something that you can do. I am convinced that it was the decision by this corporation commission and corporation commissions throughout the United States to adopt renewable energy portfolios that are killing these power plants. These utilities don't make these decisions because they're not profitable. I told you last night, if you let these power plants run as baseload stations, not swing stations, they will be profitable, and they will knock the socks off of solar and wind, especially when you strip the tax write-offs and the numerous subsidies that go into these. It's not only the direct subsidies, it's these indirect subsidies informed by these renewable energy portfolios. I'm going to ask you today, rescind the renewable energy portfolio, and that will be the lifeline for this and many other communities in northern Arizona, southern Arizona, New Mexico. Your decisions also affect New Mexico. That renewable energy portfolio affects Four Corners Power Plant. It's affected SRP's decision more than likely for Craig, all the way up in northwestern Colorado. These decisions go way, way beyond the borders of even this state. So throw the lifeline, rescind the renewable energy portfolio. You want to be a progressive, forward-thinking commission. Be the first in the nation to go back to a better day, not going forward into a worse one.
Thank you, everyone. With that, we'll move into closing comments from commissioners. I'll start with Commissioner Olson.
Well, I just want to thank you, each of you, again, for coming here this evening. This has been such a pleasure to be able to hear from each of you. What I heard here tonight is a very diverse community, each member of which loves your community, and you're here to fight for your community. And it's just been a real pleasure to be able to be here with you and to hear from you and to hear from your perspectives. And I want to just promise to you that those perspectives will be taken into consideration as we move forward. And I thank you for being able to share the evening with us, to share your thoughts. Thank you for being here, and you guys have a great evening. We look forward to debating and deliberating on this important issue. Wish we could share with you some of our thoughts here tonight, but unfortunately the ex parte rules prohibit us from being able to do that. But I just want to sincerely thank you for sharing your thoughts and for the efforts that you're making to protect your community. Thank you again.
We in business? I too would join my fellow commissioners with a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you. The 100 or so still left investing your time at this late hour. So thank you for presenting, as you all did, those who spoke and those who silently or loudly applauded those who spoke tonight. I think we're leaving St. John's with a very strong impression of exactly how you feel. God bless you.
Again, thank you for coming out. And I'm going to give a special shout out to the kids that are here as well, too. Thank you for hanging in there. And when you go to school tomorrow, tell them you were at a very important meeting about your future of your community. But again, for me, I've learned so much just by listening, and I feel your passion. I feel the strength that you have as a community. Very resilient, honorable, hardworking. You could see it when you were up here speaking. I felt that passion. I felt that spark. And knowing that you are a resilient community, but at the same time, you want to work together with us for possible solutions. So please know today, thank you. Please know today the conversation is going to be critical to my evaluation of the issues, in this docket as well, too. For those that didn't attend, and if you know someone that didn't attend this evening, they would still have an opportunity to provide public comment if they weren't able to attend tonight. We can file their comments into the docket as well, too. You can attend an upcoming town hall. We have quite a bit of virtual town halls that will be rolling out as well, too. We have about 6 planned of virtual, and we'll make sure to spread the information as well, too, with the mayor's office and with the elementary school as well, too. So we'll have plenty of events if you know of neighbors, friends, community members that didn't get the opportunity tonight. So we'll make sure that we can help and facilitate with that. If there are specific questions that weren't addressed, if you didn't feel comfortable in coming up and speaking, please know that we'll be around after And please know our offices are here to help and communicate as well too. Again, want to thank the mayor's office for helping us come and organize this event and venue. This was an amazing turnout by the community. We are super blessed. Again, want to thank former Commissioner Chris Mays and Amanda Orman as well too, getting the word out into the community and having great participation come together. Want to thank our ACC staff that are still in the back. They're just plugging away, very passionate at the work that they do at the commission. So you know, we have about over 220 employees at the commission, and they work super hard. We are, again, at the commission short-staffed as well too. We wear quite a bit of hats in different divisions, and they are the best employees here in our state because they truly care about our communities all over Arizona. So they're there in the back. I would like for them to stand so we can give them a round of applause. I want to give a special thank you to my team, Erin Ford-Fallhaber and Jennifer Benally. We took on this mission to make sure that we had in-person meetings. And at the time when we were trying to pre-plan, of course, there was a lot of people that, oh, we don't think we can do it with COVID, but super grateful and thankful that we are here in person. We're able to see each other, communicate, and so very thankful for all your hard work, ladies, so thank you very much. Again, we'll have the video uploaded onto our website as well too in about 24 to 48 hours. We also had the live streaming as well too. I checked yesterday's live stream at St. Joe's, and we had about 120 that were online at the same time, along with our 174 people that attended in person. So again, we are truly blessed to have come here. And please invite us again. We are more than happy to come out, and we look forward to the fair, right, with some yummy food as well too. But thank you so much for your hospitality and your warm welcome. Have a good night, everyone.